Oh my goodness, you've still got that voice.
It's lingering on. But I will tell you, I feel 100% better than what I did the last 2 weeks. But just the remnants is still lingering on. So I hope nobody gets this.
I hope not too, and because that's not just a cold; that's a something else.
Yeah, it was one of the worst colds I could ever remember having. But it lingered on into the chest for a little bit. So, but like I say, I 100% better. My energy's back and back to work and like I said, feeling better, and the sun's out today, so that's a great thing.
Oh, there you go. All right. And I was going to make a comment about a politician who can't talk, but I won't go there. I'm not going to say it. But you're back in the nick of time, I think. Are you not? The House of Assembly is in full swing, of course, but you're getting ready to wrap that up too, so you got back just in time.
Well, I didn't miss any days in the House, so that was a good thing. So you never like to miss the time in the House. That's an important part of the job. But you're right. It looks like things could wrap up this week if all goes well. Maybe early next week. But we are in the swing of things, getting things wrapped up. And obviously the spring session. That's where the budget comes out and things move forward.
And, we've talked before already about a couple of the key issues that were brought forward by your government, things like fracking and other ways that gave all the appearance of you kind of pushing your way into something that we didn't want you to push on. And we've talked about that part of it, certainly. You've actually passed the bill that would actually open the door to fracking. No guarantee that anybody's going to get the right to go ahead and do it anywhere soon. But you've opened the door to that and other things. Is it fair to say that this has been kind of a raucous session of the House?
Well, not even with those issues. Sorry, excuse me. It has been a bit of a raucous session with people, a lot of new members in the House. So the people learning the roles and their duties and things. So always that first session with new members coming in, it's a bit up and down, and things can get emotional. But I know people. There were some things that were called out yesterday that I actually get up and made the statement that. Look, at the end of the day, I've always tried to demonstrate respect and accountability for myself as a person in the legislature and everywhere else that I go. Because at the end of the day, once you're all done in politics, you're still a Nova Scotian, you're a neighbor, and that has to be a line that every politician should, in my eyes, follow. Never speak down to somebody, and always show respect, no matter what message you're carrying. So for me, I've always enjoyed going into the legislature, Bill. I think you and I've talked about that many times, and I've always taken that line of respect, no matter who I'm debating across the floor or what stance I'm making on the floor. I've always done it in a respectful way. So tried to cool and level the tone out yesterday a little bit, if you will.
Well, and I missed that, frankly, and therefore we perhaps missed it as well. Without going into the vivid detail, can you give us a little background as to just what happened?
Yeah, no, really, there were some emotions going on, and it was actually about a resolution that I had put on the table about Davis Day, which we recognize in Spring Hill because of the contributions to our mining history in Cumberland County, but it's recognized in many other parts of the province as well. But one member got up and made a statement that I had said words that I actually didn't say, and as you know, Bill, you can go back into Hansard and read those documents into exactly what I did say. And when I had a chance to get back up and speak, Bill, I didn't get off kilter. I didn't get emotional. I just made the comment that if it was found disrespectful to somebody, that wasn't the intent. I've never done that. I would never do that. But these are the actual words that I said. And at the end of the day yesterday, that member actually came over to me and apologized. So I was pleased at the end of the day. It lowered the temperatures in the House, and it's always fun to have a good debate and good back and forth. But it's never an intent, I don't think, for anybody in that legislature to ever be disrespectful to one person or another. So that's basis of what it is, and sometimes those happen. But I felt the need for myself, to defend myself, and in stating the facts. There were not words that I did not say. So I cleared the fact on that, and Hansard will clear that. But also just give an opportunity to the member that if he felt that that's what I was heading down to, it wasn't meant to be disrespectful. And like I said, at the end of the day, that member came over to me and sort of apologized that they took it the wrong way and appreciated me getting up and saying that.
Now, it's interesting that you point out the fact that there's a record, a very detailed, very accurate record kept of every single word spoken in the House. And you're quite right. You point out that they actually record the audio recording of all of the stuff that goes on, and then that's transliterated, if you will, into the written word in a document that you identified as Hansard. It goes right back almost to day one when there was somebody actually copying down everything was spoken in a written form. And the Hansard is a publication, an official publication of the House of Assembly. Records of that are kept forever. And the public, in fact, can avail themselves of any copies of Hansard anytime they want to find out. Now, if there's an argument that takes place and you say, I didn't say that, you've got something to back you up and prove it. And, of course, that would be proof that the public can find out as well. Now, it's not exactly, fantastic literary writing. It's not intended as a story. It's pretty dry reading, but it's there, it's fact, and it's kept forever.
Bill, yeah, and if you don't mind, I want to bring up another important point about the reason for Hansard too. And had no intentions of speaking about this, but it gives an opportunity. I often refer to people when I go to talk to schools or classes or groups of youth. I refer to the Hansard as the history book of Nova Scotia. When you look at how laws are made and debates happen, I always refer to it as the history book of Nova Scotia, and it goes to one of the funnest opportunities that I enjoy as an MLA is to be able to put resolutions on the floor to recognize constituents. And I'll just give you a quick little example, Bill. The U15 AA Ramblers hosted their division championships this past weekend in Spring Hill. They won their banner, and then they went to the next day and they won their league banner. And I had an opportunity to recognize these individuals with an individual resolution for each player, congratulating them. And these resolutions are in the history book forever. So when these individuals that are being recognized with resolutions look back 20 years to share with their kid that their name's in the history book of Nova Scotia, I've heard, I utilize this a lot. I think I've put in over 100 resolutions so far this year to recognize people in Cumberland South. But I've heard back from different people that, I've shared this with my family, and my family have actually gone in and looked at different things in Hansard and learned of different debates that have took place. And I've heard from people that relatives have been mentioned in the Hansard book. So as you said, it's very dry reading. It's not enthusiastic reading, but on the Nova Scotia Legislature webpage, it gives an opportunity for people to look up and see what's actually being said in the legislature. But also, I've used it many times to look back to see what my grandfather had said in the legislature as well.
Well, it's interesting, too. I know some people that have gotten a copy of the page, framed it, and show it proudly in their homes where there's my name. It was so-and-so said it way back in 18 whatever, But at the same time, Hansard also records the times when somebody gets dragged and kicking and screaming, dragged out of the house and, thrown out for saying something they shouldn't say. So you get the good, the bad, and the ugly in that dry reading.
Yeah, no, and I would certainly expect that if I ever get to that point, Bill, I would expect on a Wednesday morning when we have our talks that not just the constituents, but you'll also call me to account for that. I know things get emotional and heated, but I always try to maintain that level of respect and courtesy in the legislature. I try to treat people the way that I'd want to be treated and have cordial conversation and debate. Have fun with it at times too, but always being respectful.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I've had a couple of calls lately, people who have listened to us, a conversation on radio, and have called me to say, well, why don't you talk to this one or that one? Because what you do with Tory Rushton, I appreciate. And I said, what do you mean? You say, well, you don't let him just sit there and make a little speech. You make him answer questions, and you call him back to the question if he doesn't answer it the way you're looking for a complete and full answer. I said, well, that's what a radio talk show is all about. And she said, yeah, but, we don't get that from anybody else. And, we don't do it very often, but when we do, when we disagree, apparently it stands out. It jumps out of the radio. And this particular House session is one of those examples where I've had occasion to call you to task, to call your ministers to task, to call the Premier to task. And yet we're still talking. And that's the important point, I think, to make here is that we don't always agree, but, I have a responsibility to get you to explain the things that we, the people, are wondering about. And I'm grateful that you do. Sometimes you dodge a little bit, and I might have to ask you a second time in a different way, but I think ultimately we get to the truth and get to the bottom of it. And that's what we're after, isn't it?
Yeah, no, certainly, Bill. And I know that you and I have both in the last few weeks have received notes from people that do listen to us on a regular basis. And look, I tell you, and I've shared this with you many times, I get a great response. Whether people agree with what's being said on our little 15, 20-minute conversation, they still listen in weekly, and they appreciate that, and I certainly appreciate the opportunity too. But just two facts. You had mentioned about the last few weeks, you and I may be having some uncomfortable conversations, but stating to the case, and I don't know whether you've seen the letter yet or not. It came through the mail. It actually came to my house. But one individual that listens to us regularly didn't necessarily agree, and probably still doesn't necessarily agree with what's taking place with fracking. But he appreciated our conversation, appreciated the fact that I actually had talked to him and shared my concerns and the ability for me to talk directly to the minister responsible for it, the environment minister, and sharing his concerns with the Premier. And he wrote to you and I both. You were CC'd on it, Bill, whether you've seen it yet or not. But he thanked the opportunity for that to be shared and appreciated the fact that we're having the conversation, but also appreciated the fact that he reached out and as his MLA, I'm sharing his concerns back to the responsible ministers and Premier. But also another letter that I did receive, I don't think you were CC'd on it, but we often talk about things that are happening within my constituency of Cumberland South. And we had talked about something that took place in Parsborough over the winter, and the individual wasn't aware of it, and but certainly appreciated the fact that we were talking about it, and they actually had an opportunity to partake in the event that weekend. Otherwise, they wouldn't see him in a newspaper anymore, obviously, Bill, because there's no more newspapers. So this conversation that we have, it may not always be political. It may be about events. You and I don't really set a schedule of what we're going to talk about each week. We just sort of off the cuff, but we point out the important events that are taking place in communities throughout Cumberland South, and certainly I've heard from the people of Cumberland South that certainly appreciate this conversation we have each week, and I know I do.
Well, and you mentioned, of course, about the news from the communities, and the newspapers are gone. One of the things that our community newspapers always used to do is they had what they called correspondents. They were living in all the tiny little communities around the places that had a newspaper, like Spring Hill, like Oxford, like Amherst. And we've been trying to do the same thing here with Radio from Hope Centre, where we want to get community correspondents everywhere. So somebody, for example, in Parsborough, somebody else in Tidnish, wherever it might be within Cumberland, since we've been given the title that we're the voice of Cumberland, if we could get people who would actually keep an eye out for things going on in their community and then contact me directly, we could talk about it before talking to you even, talk about it with somebody from within each of the communities. So if there's anybody who wants to be a community correspondent, all they have to do is call me, and my number is open book, 902-614-3000, and we can get more of those community activities and community news events covered right here along with you and others. But having said that, back to you quickly again. If the House is going to wrap up soon, you've passed the bill that will allow some conversation about fracking, and you said we disagree. I haven't found a single solitary soul who agrees with any aspect of fracking. So you just got to know, sir, that the first time somebody applies, especially if they apply in Cumberland County, you and I are going to cross swords in a big way.
Yeah, I don't think we'll be crossing swords, Bill. We'll have a conversation, we've always done that. But you know where I'm at with this issue, and my constituents know where I'm at with this issue. But what we heard from the minister yesterday when he spoke about this, this is going to allow the conversation to start where it hasn't taken place. When you look at the Wheeler report from 2014, I think under the McNeil government. It made recommendations about petroleum and gas exploration, which include different aspects, but fracking was a part of it. I still have concerns. I share that with the Premier and the ministers responsible for that, and I'm going to carry on doing that for my constituents. So yeah, we're absolutely going to have the conversations, Bill, when if and when this does happen. But as you said earlier, it doesn't necessarily open the book that things are going to happen. Anyway, it gives an opportunity to have the conversations to see what the realm of possibility is. But I can tell you that a conversation last night that I had with the Premier about the water reserves that the municipality of Oxford utilizes and the underground water system that our wells utilize. So the Premier is very well aware of this, and he said, "Well, we're not looking at doing any damage here. We need to have a conversation. These are conversations that have eluded because of what's going on the south of the border." And when I think of the industries in Cumberland County alone, what utilize natural gas to keep the industries going, the people that utilize natural gas in their homes to heat their homes and cook, all of the natural gas coming into Nova Scotia right now comes from the U.S. And what if Donald Trump were to shut that off tomorrow? There's no conversations happening about natural gas. And I'm not just talking about fracking. There's opportunities to have different conversations. But what I do want to highlight, and I think the Premier said it to you, if there's any projects that are going to have to go forward, there has to be community conversation. They have to be environmentally safe, and it can't jeopardize our environment.
We got that loud and clear. I'm still opposed, but
yeah, no, and respectfully, and I've said to you, Bill, too. I have some concerns, and I'm sharing those with that's my job as MLA to share those constituents and concerns as well with my counterparts. So I'm going to carry on doing that. Nothing's changed here. I'm going to carry on doing that.
I know you will, and I will too. Having said that, you mentioned that you feel the House is going to close, come to an end of the session at least, if not this week, early next week. So next Wednesday we'll likely be able to look at the wrap up. But I can't help but think that this has been a raucous one. There have been a lot of things for the opposition to pick at. What do you think was the highlight of the session thus far?
Look, there's a very good budget on the table. And we even had some opposition members support the budget, which I've never seen in my 8 years in the legislature. Opposition members supporting the budget, but there's tax relief in that budget for Nova Scotians. There's opportunity for infrastructure development in that budget for Nova Scotians. There's more investment into healthcare in this budget. So I mean, obviously, if you ask anybody in the government side, that would say, what's the highlight of this? Every spring session would obviously be the government's budget. That's a highlight. It's actually going to be predicted to save Nova Scotia taxpayers $500 million out of their pockets this fiscal year. So the budget would be a huge highlight of what has actually taken place. And obviously, as you said, the opposition's had a lot to stem about. There's not been a lot of question from opposition about the budget. So whether they voted for it or not, I can't help but think that they personally support it. And maybe because of the opportunity to be opposition and hold government to account, they couldn't feel that they could support the budget. But there's a lot of good things in that budget that are coming in.
Well, I think there's a willingness to look at teamwork as well today, because we're all, I say all, talking about the world really, under the threat of what's Mr. Trump going to do next. And he's disrupted and if not destroyed a great number of institutions and relationships already. And he's got almost 4 years left on his mandate. So I think there is a lot of willingness for Canadians, Nova Scotians, folks from Cumberland, all of us wanting to keep the door open to working together, because it's together that we'll be able to survive, be able to win.
No, absolutely, Bill. And you bring up another highlight because of the threats of tariffs. There's a $200 million sort of reserve fund for tariff relief if that need to be arised. So a lot of good things in the budget, and I'm just recognizing the time. I know you get a flash to your next segment of the conversation, but I just want to give a shout out to the Ships Company Theatre that I was invited to, and also had Minister Dave Ritchie from Truro Millbrook Salmon River up with me on Saturday night at the Ships Company Theatre, and both of our wives. We announced help announce the upcoming agenda for the Ships Company Theatre summer production. So just want to give a shout out to the hard work and dedication of the staff and volunteers and the board members of the Ships Company Theatre, and looking forward to another successful season.
Now, between now and next Wednesday, I want to wish you well at that voice, that cold, that chest irritation you have. It's still there. I can tell that's over 2 weeks worth already. Enough is enough. You get better quick, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Bill. Always fun talking with you. Everyone stay safe, and we'll talk next week.